The Outlaws of Ravenhurst, Chapter 4, When Men Play Marbles. The good ship Anne of Glasgow sped, all sails drawing aloft and alow. The wind whistled jig tunes in the cordage and set the tackle blocks clapping in mimic applause. This was a good sound to the ears of Brownhead, for it sang to him of the Maryland woods. He stood by the stern rail, looking back at the ripples of the wake into the zigzag world of wave tips, and on to the west where the grey disk of the ocean met the grim vault of the sky. He felt dumbly conscious of his own exceeding smallness in the world of waters, and decidedly smaller in the strange coming world of men, of which Sir Roger preached endlessly. During such sermons the boy listened as little as possible, and the moment they were over, set himself to forget. Yet one thing was bitterly clear. Brownhead was no longer George of the gay Maryland woods, but my Lord Gordon. He beat his silken knee against the rail and growled, "Oh, your lordship, the face you wear holds storm enough to sink the Anne of Glasgow." And Gordon turned, half pleased at the interruption, for he knew the voice. It was the man whom Sir Roger called Godfrey. Brownhead almost liked him. At least he was a pleasant fellow with whom to waste an hour. "What has raised the present glum wind?" Godfrey ran on. "Sir Roger," fumed Gordon, "I'd rather swallow bear's grease than hear him. He's had me in the cabin talking high and mighty, making me walk on my toes like a top-silly girl at a buskin bee, ordering me every once in half a crack to flop my head on my shins, and getting as mad as a slap wasp if I fall sprawling instead of making a court bow correctly. But your lordship is learning with astonishing rapidity to act like a jack-a-dandy for the pleasure of an uncle who does so dearly love me. Bah!" Gordon thrust his hand into his belt wallet, and drew out his only treasures. 4 agate pebbles, roughly rounded by many hammerings, a pioneer boy's marbles. Squatting on the deck, he placed 3, and began to shoot at them with the 4th. "Loves me," he growled. "So do wood-ticks. Wants me for something. Crooked, mean like—" Gordon shot a marble with a vicious snap. "So," whistled Godfrey, fixing his keen eyes on the boy's face, "for a 10-year lad, you're rather more than so much shrewd, my young Lord O'Gordon. You don't like being the marble when Sir Roger is a shooter, and it's his game." The lad gathered his marbles with a sweep of his hands, and jumped to his feet. "Why should I?" he demanded. Godfrey chuckled. "Listen, today ye are the heir, the marble. Tomorrow ye are the earl, and Sir Roger is the marble. Wait for your turn." It was the boy's turn to whistle. Godfrey looked out over the sea a moment, then spoke again. "Your lordship, ye have not yet wakened to the fact that ye are Earl of Ravenhurst, though as yet a trifle too young to take charge of affairs. An earl, a little king in your own domain. But let me show you a picture of what it means to be chief at old Raven. Now, it was for the brace. He is not the first chief of your house, but the first to write his name in history. There has been a chieftain stronghold on Raven since God made the Scot and the devil set Scots a fighting. A bit to the south of Benander Mountain, a hill in the black and jagged rock is throws a good 10 bow shots into the frith. The sea beats itself to a fury, roaring about its wreck-strewn base. This rock, from its shape, or from the ill-omened birds which nested there, or because of the fierce marauders who made of it a stronghold, has been called since the beginning Raven. Now, for the brace was a bold and bloody man. It carried a long 2-handed claymore, the like of which no other man ever bore. From his wild and lonely tower in Raven, he sallied out for daring raids, driving home cattle, plundering, burning villages and harvest fields. It was for this he was dubbed Fire the Brace, a name of terror from the Isles to the English border. "An out-and-out villain and robber!" cried the boy. Softly, teased Godfrey. "In a united name, Fire the Brace are coming, robbers, swords have not slipped in scabbards." The chief was but a bold blade in the rough game of war. Boys throw down marbles and play grabs. Men play grabs also. But your lordship has a keen sense of honour. Fire the braes lived centuries ago, when even kings were crowned. In fact, your house rose from a petty chieftain's stronghold to a knight's castle by a rough jest. This Fire the braes once sprang out from the bracken, and single-handed fought with a mighty antlered buck, and slew him with his claymore under the very eyes of the king who'd sworn to hang him. But, instead, being pleased by the wild Highlander's jest, the king made Fire the braes his friend, an armoured knight and warden to keep other men in order. Yet, if your lordship wishes to hear about a knight of honour as unsullied as the heaven-born snow, let me tell you of Langsword. He was your great-great-grandfather, the man who raised Ravenhurst to an earldom. It was in that old time, began Godfrey, when monarchs crimsoned their own swords, and bore the scars of their own battle wounds. James Stewart, King of Scotland, stood on a jutting rock above the Frith. The sea is no respecter of persons. The veering wind that whipped the surfs into the mist to sting the royal face. But a storm of another nature thundered in the voice of James as he eyed a seaman grovelling at his fate. "That's a dog that refused to obey our order." "Sire," wailed the wretch, "I cannot put my boat across the Frith. The storm's rack's coming fast. The sail's torn. The hole's a lake." "And your coward heart would sink the galley. My lord of Arran run a spare for the scoundrel who calls himself a Scottish seaman. Force a jackal against a wall and he'll fight a lion." God is about to spare, the man retorted. "If you get the best of an enemy, what matters it that starving wife and child wait for a dead father?" Indignation seized the surrounding knights. 100 swords were drawn, but James V was a man of moods as changeable as the sea. Instead of added wrath, pity pierced the fury of his eyes. "So," he said, "and is it love of wife and child that makes a coward of a man?" He paused, and grief softened that lean, strong, passion Stuart face. The royal home was yet in mourning for two bonny princes, sons long hoped for, long waited for, that died as fast as we lips learned to lisp their father's name. It was the man in James, not the king, that spoke. "And have you then a son?" "Aye, sire." Hope was born of the kind note in the monarch's voice. "3 sons, and one runs halfway down the hill to meet me as I became bare in my nets at night. And one clings to the skirts of my good wife, and one's way bit yet and slips upon the breast." King James turned short about and looked over the sea. A moment so he stood, and then he said, "Go to your home, good man. Tell them their mute cry has saved you from a coward's grave." And the royal voice sank low. "Bid the wee ones pray that God may send the king a son." Again the face of James grew stern. He gazed across the waters to the shore beyond. The Frith was narrow at this point, for from the opposite shore the crags and cliffs of Benender thrust themselves a good mile into the sea. Narrow the strait might be, but calm it seldom was. The wind puffed sharply, veering from north to east. The scudding cloud wrap covered half the sky. On the shore across the Frith a group of men waved torches, with Argyle signalling for orders, and there was none that dared to put the leaking boat across the strait. A clank of armour broke the suspense, and the young knight dropped on his knees before the king. "May it please you, sire," said a noble at the king's right hand, "Sir Malcolm Gordon craves audience. The youth is of the blood and of bold Gordon Fire the braes, as brave as he and as gallantly desirous of serving your majesty. He is dubbed Langsword, and is the laird of yon little tower that perches there across the way like a raven upon a rock." "Sire," the face of Langsword glowed with loyalty and daring, "the word a cat is not set in the house of Gordon. Let the honour of bearing the message be mine. I shall swim the Frith, my liege." "Swim," cried the king, doubting his ears. "Swim where a boat does not bear." "Sire, I did it a year ago for pure sport, but not in the face of a coming storm." "Nor did I swim then beneath a king's eye. But hark, noble Gordon, even now the surf booms along the rocks have been under. Sire, I know where the sand shallows lie, and at worst I can die but once for you, my liege. No kings ever played dice with the hearts and brains and souls of men as did the Sturt line, and now James smiled. Well was his pride pleased by his youth's devotion, almost adoration, and when I spoke scarcely could praise have been couched more cunningly. My Lord of Gordon, your loyalty deserves your confidence. My Lord of Gordon, your loyalty deserves your confidence. You shall know what message it is that you bear and why. The king paused, and those who stood about his majesty stepped off perhaps a dozen paces. Russell has proved himself a thrice compounded villain and traitor. His castle is a very nest for the hatching of border plots, raids and burnings. Bid Argyle march and Russell. Raise your own clan and assist. Success attend your valour, noble Gordon. If you win the day, we pledge that you shall be belted earl. Langsar kissed the royal hand and strode swiftly down to the beach. Unbuckling his heavy armour, he cast it on the sand. When ready for the plunge, he stepped out on a rock, paused and dropped on his knee, and with him knelt those beside the waves, and James of Scotland with his lords from the cliff. The Langsword's prayer was brief. Saint Margaret grant me long wind and strong blood, for set foot on yonder shore, very silver shrined at the chapel in the wood. King James answered, Aye, man. And Langsword stood, hands poised for the dive, watching for the outgoing of a wave, the tallest knight in the Highlands, lean with nutty muscles which rose and fell like those that move under a tiger's hide. A sail flew across the face of the racing wrack, and screamed the wild defiance of the storm. Godspeed! Called the voices from the shore. Saint Mary for the King James! The Langsword cried, and plunged into the sea. Like a shaft of white light the body cleft air, and water and was gone. A wave came trembling in, growling, shaking a fleecy mane. The head of the swimmer rose, a crest reared above him, broke, crashed over him, carrying back a spear's length. He sank. Those on the cliff and those on the shore leaned, gasping. He rose. The long white line of foam was between the swimmer and the shore. Oh, Scotwell's foam, called James, but Mary's virgin soul was swear to deck the shrine with blood-red rubies. Thunder muttered along Benender. Flashes of lightning played on the clay like lancers tilting before battle. The swimmer had gained 3 bowshot space against the sea. His head was a dodging speck, and the king dared not rest his eyes lest he lost sight of it. The stone broke, rain swirling to the mad onslaught of the wind. The Frith rose and sank in white, roaring heights and bellowing caverns. The lightning shot its jagged bolts from sky to ocean, on the swimmer a tempest had swallowed him. James strode the cliff. Sometimes he prayed aloud, and sometimes cursed himself for any that dared venture within earshot of the royal wrath. An hour passed. The storm drew back along the hills. Ravage gloated, exhausted, muttering, This day was lost, the noblest knight that ever risked life for Scotland's king. So said James Stewart, his face gloomy as the sullen Frith below. But Aaron, peering through the mist, gave a sudden pluck at the royal slave. Oh, my liege, a light and berander! The Argyle's signal! 2 to right, 3 to left. They have the message. The Langsword has crossed the Frith! Godfrey paused, for Gordon stood with his right hand clenched as if it held a sword. He drew his breath through parted lips, and his eyes were like a war eagle's. Aye, cried Godfrey, your young lordship is a fine-kin splinter of old Langsword's stale. But the boy was not pleased with the compliment or with anything that delayed the tale, for he broke in. And Langsword raised the clan, joined Argyle, and then, like a good knight and true, I sat after Russell, chased him well up the morses beyond Benender. The Lowlander fled north toward Laird of the Isles. Langsword harried the Russell lands and followed. With Argyle he crept upon Russell in the wilds beyond Strathbogie and caught him at an act of treason. He was pledging to lure King James to his castle and let the Isleman capture the royal person. Hal of England was paying for. As your young lordship knows, English kings have ever tried to put Scotland in their hunting bag. Russell was hanged, drawn and quartered as a traitor should be, and Langsword was given all Russell's forfeited lands. Medon Earl became a trusted counsellor of good King James. In truth, the plunge of Langsword into the Frith was a leap into the high seas of royal favour. Good! Cried Gordon. The Outlaws of Ravenhurst, Chapter 5, Castle Ravenhurst. It was harvest time before the long journey on sea and land ended. They had changed horses at the last inn, and the carriage rattled merrily along the Highland road. The tired boy had watched the haymakers field after field until he had fallen asleep. Sir Roger sat scowling, tapping his boot with his scabbard. Godfrey, who seemed to be something more than a servant, sat watching him.
3 long years of labour and the end of a failure, growled the nobleman.
Failure?
It's the lords of the house of Gordon who grudge failure on the first note comes. We have the heir, and old Ravenhurst will yet be the greatest earldom in Scotland. The heir we have him indeed, but what an heir! We would do better without him. Bred on the farm, he has the manners of a clown. Still he is learning. At least he can bow without falling down. Time and training will remedy his lack of culture. It's the Catholic faith in him which ruins all.
The faith of a 10-year-old boy ruins all.
Oh, Sir Roger, is this the spirit of the noble house of Gordon? You say for yourself is stubbornness. Stubbornness, that is the best point in the lad. Do you think a wakeling could ever win back the lands of Ravenhurst? Our work is to turn the strong will from his faith to what we wish. Very easily said, my good Godfrey, but it can't be done. What else have I striven to do since the day I found him? Right at this moment, the bearded Abel has more influence with him than I.
Sir Roger, it is hard matter to skin a deer with the handle of a knife. The blade does such work much better.
Do you remember that? The men would have said from the first, don't try to drive the boy, lead him. Lead him? A ship's cable will not draw that boy one step.
My lord, I said lead, I did not say draw.
No more of your riddles, my good Godfrey, speak plainly.
Sir Roger, fire and sword cannot turn that boy from his faith now, while he loves it. But let him live alone, and he will forget both Abel and his teaching. Tell him to fire the brace and lang sword till he longs to be as great an earl as they, nay, even the greatest of them all. Then in later years, when there is a choice between lands, castles, and the king's favour of the Catholic faith, and poverty, there may be a struggle, but the faith will go to the wall.
Perhaps he will die for leading some fool's chase for rebellion. That has happened before.
True, but he is only a child. A child's faith dies easily if it is not nourished. Don't have fear as his mother. If he'll follow my advice, he'll never say her, never even know that she lives.
I need the mother's evidence that is the heir. Lady Margaret will not dare to cross my will. She knows the penalty.
Sir Roger's face grew very ugly.
Lady Margaret will not dare. Remember that frail and gentle woman is a Douglas.
Who has ever yet bent the will of a Douglas?
Let her once speak to him. Let her but once tell him of the old earl, or of that fool, Gordon's father. Oh, have a care. He'll be an easy task to lead the boy, but the boy with his mother at his back, aye, that's another tale. She'll have more influence with him than a dozen Abels. Douglas or no, my lady will fare ill if she crosses wills with me. There is such a thing as the will of a Gordon as well as that of a Douglas. I am no wakeling to bend to a woman. Let her once dare open her lips. Let her once dare. I will execute the law to the fullest extent.
The sleeping boy stirred. Sir Roger's voice grew suddenly pleasant.
Ah, little nephew, you're sleeping at a strange time. We shall see the castle in a few moments. Yonder is the spot where Gordon fired the brace, killed the great deer.
Gordon pointed to a glen leading into the heart of the mountain. Did you not tell me that the antlers are still in the castle? The boy was wide awake now.
They are in the old earl's room above the fireplace. You must see them tonight if you wish. Old Fire the Brace was a great man in his day.
Sir Roger looked at the eagle light in the boy's eyes and smiled at Godfrey.
Do you say that point of rocks jutting out from the Ben Anders to the Frith? In the lay of that is the spot where Gordon o' the Langsword landed when he swam the Frith from shore to shore and carried the message for the king.
The Gordon leaned forward eagerly.
Was there ever a greater earl than Gordon o' the Langsword? Godfrey has told me so many wonderful deeds that he did. Indeed, he was the proudest of them all. The earldom reached its greatest extent in his days, but it died at Solway Moss fighting for King James. The day has been evil for the House of Gordon since then. Sir Roger paused a moment to look at Godfrey, for the boy's face was all aglow. Land after land was taken from us, till when I became regent we had little more than the bare rock on which the castle stands. We have gained a good portion for you, and you must do the rest. I will do all that can be done until you are a man, but you must be the Earl who raises the Ravenhurst even higher than she was before she fell. I will try, my lord. Gordon spoke very slowly. His square little jaw grew a bit sharper. His eyes shone with a wild Douglas fire. Godfrey looked at Sir Roger and smiled. The road made a short turn around a cliff. In the depths below, the water foamed among the rocks. Far off down the frith, 5 great grey towers stood out in the sunset. The slant rays sifting down among them touched here and there a battlement with gold and deepened the purple shadows. From the seaward tower came a puff of white smoke and then a roar. Sir Roger rose in the carriage, lifting his plumed hat. Over the water the sound of a great bell rolled. The rocks caught the echo, and many an elfin note made answer from crag and cliff, and forest far up even to the summit of old Ben Ender. "What is all the noise about?" whispered the lad. "Tell me, Godfrey, or I shall make a blunder." "Will you ever learn that you are the scion of the House of Gordon? The cannon and the bells of old Ravenhurst are welcoming you, my lord." The road turned in among the hills again. The castle was out of sight. "Lowlanders have taken our lands, made my people slaves. You told me so long ago." The Gordon spoke very slowly. "But an earl as great as Langsword could win it all back again. You must be that earl." "I will do my best, uncle." "There was just one thing standing in the way." Godfrey shook his head and frowned sharply. His lips said, "Not now, not yet." But they made no sound. Sir Roger continued in spite of the warning. He was as certain of victory now as he had been of failure. "One thing stands in the way. This one thing will ruin all if you have not the sense to give it up. You cannot be a Catholic and win back to Ravenhurst her rightful place in Scotland. The king is for the new faith and will put down with fire and sword any noble who stands for the old." "My lord," said the boy, looking straight into his uncle's eyes, "the earldom costs too much. There is nothing worth the buying if the price be the fire of hell for evermore. Daddy Abel said so." A chorus of shouts drowned Sir Roger's answer. "The Gordon! The Gordon! Hail to the young chief! Aye, Sir James' son, and no mistake!" It was a group of herdsmen watching from a cliff. Another turn among the crags, and he could see the road winding up to the castle, and the crowds of peasants throng after throng along the wayside. "The Gordon! The Gordon! Aye, in very truth, the Earl's own son! God's blessing on his young head! The Gordon! The Gordon!" Right and left the lad threw silver bobbies out among them as he passed on the long way up to the castle. The great grey drawbridge came clanging down across the moat. A double file of soldiers marched out, cheering as only soldiers can. "The Gordon! The Gordon! Welcome to the chief!" They crossed their blades, and the lad walked on beneath a shining arch of steel. Straight across the courtyard, between the files, stepped the sturdy little figure. The castle door swung open. Long lines of servants in the great hall bowed and cheered as he passed along the polished floor. The massive carven doors of the drawing room slid back noiselessly. Someone in the green and gold called, "Sir Charles Gordon, Lord Rockraven, Sir Roger of Gordon!" The boy looked about him in wide-eyed wonder. Never had he dreamed of such a place. The candles, it seemed to the boy there were 1,000, made the room as light as day. Pictures, great ones from floor to ceiling, statues, masses of furniture and rich tapestry, ladies in crimson and ladies in gold, ladies in purple and ladies in blue. The gentlemen dressed like peacocks, with gold lace and jewelled shoe buckles. Here a plated chief, and there an English nobleman. From 100 throats burst the old cheer that has greeted the Earls of Ravenhurst these hundreds of years. "The Gordon! The Gordon! Welcome, my lord! Thrice welcome!" Among them all, the puzzled lad saw one kind face. It was a little woman with snow-white hair, a face worn and thin as if from much suffering, two dark blue eyes that looked straight into his own. He turned to her as to a friend. "Aren't you somebody that belongs to me?" he whispered. The woman took his face in her frail hands. She looked at him long and lovingly. "I am your mother, Gordon, and you are welcome home." "Ah, Lady Margaret, you must not keep this young lordship off yourself. Let us kiss him too," cried gay voices. Sir Roger frowned. He had always feared that the boy would show his farm earrings by his clumsiness, and now, at this all-important first appearance, there he stood, timid, stammering, clinging to his mother's hands. Not one of those graceful bows, not one of those neatly turned speeches. Oh, how carefully he had trained him just what to do and say. The red flush brought out the tan and the freckles, and made him look so common. Sir Roger remarked nervously, "His lordship is brained by the voyage." "Since when has a weathered face been a disgrace at Ravenhurst?" queried Lady Margaret gently. "In truth, there never was a carpet knight among the lairds from old Gordon Fire the Braze to your most noble brother." The lad saw that his mother's words had angered his uncle. He put one arm about her as if to guard her, and looked straight at them all. The bashfulness was gone, and there was in the boy's figure a certain dignity. "How much he resembles his father," said one. "He too much like the Earl, I fear. God grant him a better end." "But then," remarked a noble who seemed of some importance, at least in his own eyes, "but then he has you, Sir Roger. You'll do your duty. When you have no fear of the mother's proving unwise while the uncle is at hand." "I'll indeed do my duty, my lords, both by the air and by Ravenhurst," Sir Roger answered somewhat stiffly. "Lady Gordon will wisely remember that there are laws concerning the importance of knowledge on certain dangerous subjects to youth of her land." The dark eyes of Lady Margaret looked straight into Sir Roger's. "I thank your lordship for your kindness. I am well aware of the laws of which you speak, and I know how to conform myself to them." Her voice was sweet and low, but there was a ringing firmness in her tone, a light in the depths of her eyes. She seemed to be a mother eagle guarding her young. The Outlaws of Ravenhurst, Chapter 6, by the old fireplace. "This is the old Earl's room. It'll be yours now," said Nurse Benson, swinging open a great carved door. "You may have a good night's rest, my lord." The aged servant bowed and closed the door, leaving Gordon alone in a large room. "Now this makes two people here that I like. There's my mother and there's Benson. Nurse said she cared for my father when he was a wee bit bairny. That's why she gave me pigeon pie. He always wanted pigeon pie. Oh, what a beautiful fireplace!" Indeed, it was a fine bit of Flemish carving. Two yeomen standing on the hearth held the mantle on their spears. The shelf was bare, covered only with white linen. At the ends of it, two knights stood crossing swords above a picture. Above it hung a great pair of antlers. "Those deer horns must be old Fire the Braze. Uncle said they were in here. I wonder, is that his picture too?" The boy held up the candle to examine it. The painting represented an old warrior, white-haired but large and strong of limb. A kind face that smiled at one, and the jaw squared to ugliness. "It cannot be Fire the Braze. He lived so long ago. Perhaps it is the Gordon of the Lang sort. But where in the world did they get that picture of me?" For a lad stood by the warrior's knee, who smiled from the canvas with a face Gordon had seen too often in the fishing pool, not to recognize. Then other memories came. He saw another fireplace, not so beautiful as this, but wide and low and very comfortable. Mary Abel at one end of the hearth, spinning with swift, sure fingers. Daddy at the other end, his pipe in the corner of his mouth, the zip-zip-zir of his whetstone on the axe. Joel and the twins rolling over one another on the cabin floor. The boy leaned against the fireplace and cried. For the first time,
since he had seen the last bit of smoke from the Abel cabin slipping behind the trees. There was a gentle touch on his arm. "I'll never place anything on this mantle, my son," and a white hand raised the candlestick. "Are you lonesome in this grand old house?" I was thinking of Joel and the folks at home. I couldn't even say goodbye." Lady Margaret sat down in a wide armchair and drew the boy down beside her. "Is this Joel, my son?" "Joel, he's my twin. I mean, we always thought we were twins. I didn't bid him goodbye." Then with a little wonder in his voice, "But you're not angry? Uncle Roger was angry at me. I cried for my folks. He thinks being poor is a disgrace." "Gordon," said his mother earnestly, "I should indeed be grieved if you had no love in your heart for that woman who, in spite of her poverty, took a homeless babe to her heart and was so true a mother that you never dreamed you were not her son. Some day, if God gives you your rights, you must do great things for them. But all that we can do now is to write and let them know of your safe arrival. All that would please them. Daddy couldn't read it, but they'll wait till Father Cornwall comes." "Father Cornwall?" Lady Margaret's face lost all its gentleness. Her eyes were as stern as the old Douglas steel. Oh, why did everyone hate the faith he had been taught to love? His hand gripped the arm of the chair till the knuckles stood out hard and white. Yet he looked straight into those stern eyes and answered, "The Abels are Catholics, and I'm Catholic too." His mother was not looking at him now. Her eyes were fixed on the old fireplace with a look of deepest joy. "Holy Mother of God," she was saying, "I thank thee that thou hast kept thy trust. Mother, if you were a Catholic, what made you look at me like that?" "I wish to learn what mentally you are formed, my son. There is one weakling in the house of Gordon. Had you shown a spirit like Sir Roger's, had your will bent because you feared me, I would have disowned you, my son, though it broke my heart. The heir of Ravenhurst must always stand for God, and our blessed Lady let the cost be what it may." A gleam came into Lady Margaret's eyes. "Nay, most noble Sir Bulpree, now will the Countess of Ravenhurst conform herself to those laws of Scotland. I fit herself most snugly into this first opportunity. The good uncle is very busy talking about himself, and all he has done or maybe not done in the colonies. The good Godfrey also is busy. He must needs open the chest and show the wampum, the tomahawk, saving a bearskin, though I doubt somewhat the truth of Sir Roger's tale of his great bravery in killing the monster." "Killing the bear? He is not claiming my pelt, is he? He didn't have a thing to do with it. I killed the bear myself." "You killed that beast? Did you more than help some hunter just a little? The old bear had us treed. She rammed her snout right up on the gun. I couldn't have missed her if I had tried. My son, I came here tonight to speak of things more important than a bear's pelt." There was that in her voice which made the boy look up with swift constraint of every muscle. Lady Margaret smiled, for she saw the war spirit that pulsed in his frame, and she knew him to be worthy of her confidence, though but a boy in hand and heart and brain. "I have much to tell you this night, my son," she said, and her deep eyes seemed to read his soul. "Things of important matters that could not be trusted to a coward. It was for this reason that I treated you, little boy, and your mother's heart was glad to hear it ring back true, Gordon steel. Of the things that I tell you this night, speak nothing. You are yet a boy and do not know friend from foe. Whatever be your need, put no trust in Godfrey Bertrandson." The lad's brow drew up in a puzzle. "I thought you were going to say not to trust Uncle Roger," he blurted. Lady Margaret laughed. "Why should I warn? Why, there is no danger. You've already taken the measure of Sir Roger, but I warn you, trust nothing to Godfrey Bertrandson." Then suddenly, after a pause, like an arrow shot from under a shield, the mother sent a question. "What do you know about your father?" The boy frowned a moment as if searching his memory. "Not much, mother. I guess his name's all they told me." She seemed relieved. "So you shall learn of him from me, and that is well," she said. There was in her eyes a look, deep, unfathomable,
as if a mingling of joy and pain. "I was an orphan in this house," she continued, "a child of Douglas blood, but penniless. James was Earl of Ravenhurst, not as it is today, but as it was in the time of which you will learn, a bleak winter time of poverty and pain. Yet there are gifts that gold and fame can never buy, for God alone has the giving of them. God gave to James and me a love that was blessed before his throne in heaven. Here, standing before this fireplace, we were married. You smile, my son. Some day you will know that this great room in the seaward tower is the room of memories to all of Gordon blood, and this fireplace is a sacred thing to all who know its history. James and I had waited long for our wedding day, because no priest had come this way in many years. He was no longer young, nor yet was I, but we would have gone single to our graves rather than be wedded by any other than a priest of God's holy church. God sent his minister to us, and the castle rang with mirth and song. Never was there a gayer wedding, nor was there one laugh less light, because both bridal pair and the merrymaking clan had nothing but oat cakes and ale to feast upon. 3 years God gave joy to James and me, and then he sent the cross, my son. For it was 10 years ago on this very night that the king's dragoons came for your father. James was standing by my side as I lay on the couch yonder. He thought me to be dying. We could hear the heavy boots of the soldiers tramping in the hall below. "Courage, little comrades in arms," he whispered. "The battle lures. The bugle of Christ calls forward. So we falter in the charge. We follow a leader crucified." Then came the clanking of their armour as they climbed the stairs. James took you from my arms, wee bit of a newborn babe that you were, and carried you over to the fireplace. A little image of a lady used to stand there. He laid you down before it and prayed, "Holy Mother of God, Margaret is dying. I'm going God knows where. See, there is no one to guard the faith of our child. Holy Mother will leave him in your care." James brought you back to me. "Fear nothing, Margaret," he whispered. "The Blessed Mother never yet has failed those who trust in her." And I kissed us both and went out, and the dragoons took him. But my son, I would that you could know the joy in my heart this night when I say how faithfully Our Lady has kept her trust. Oh, son, we shall cling to each other and trust the sweet Mother of God. "Where's my father now?" asked the boy, his bright eyes wide with wondering love. "God alone knows," she answered. "I never learned what befell him. So many years have passed, I hope he is dead." "Hope that he is dead?" "Yes, Gordon, I hope that my brave and noble James is dead. For if he is dead, he is with other martyred Gordons who stand before the great white throne. But if he is living, he is in some foul dungeon, suffering hunger, thirst, the rack, and know not what." Margaret was not weeping. She had borne her pain too long for that. But the lad knew not now why his mother's hair was white, and in his childish way he strove to comfort her. "Mother," the boy ventured, "perhaps, you see, Father Cornwall was so wise, I guess all priests must be, that the next time we go to Mass, the priest could help us find out about my father." Lady Margaret smiled. He was so eager to comfort her, so powerless. "My son, you have forgotten that we do not live in Mary's land beyond the sea. I have been present at Holy Mass 5 times in my life. Even should the holy sacrifice be offered near us, there'd be small chance of our being there. Sir Roger watches like a hawk. I shall tell you what I do. When on a Sunday I'm longing to live in lands where Mass bells rings, I come in here and kneel beside the old fireplace. This is a sacred relic of the house of Gordon. Many times in bygone years the priest of God made of his mantle an altar. Many times within these walls the angels covered their faces with their wings, saying, 'Holy, holy, holy, Lord God of hosts.' Once did wicked men spill here the blood of God. That silver spot upon the hearth marks the place where the drops of the precious blood fell years and years ago. Therefore to this holy room I come and kneel by the fireplace and pray a while, and kiss that little silver spot and beg the good Lord Christ to come to me in spirit, since I cannot receive him in the Holy Sacrament. You can do this too, but we must not come together, and if we must not stay more than 2 or 3 minutes. If Sir Roger were to learn of this, even his small comfort would be denied us. Uncle Roger is mean to you, cried the boy with sudden anger. But now that I'm here, if he dares say a thing to you, you will keep your temper and say nothing. That is what you'll do when things go wrong. If you fly into a passion, you'll do great harm and no good. Kate is little thought to be your comfort at such times. Nothing Roger says can wound me. Only those we love can cause us grief. Let me see you growing up, day by day, such a son as the child of such a father should be. Then your mother will be a happy woman, come what may. Gordon felt the strength of her will across his own, and the love in his heart for her deepened into reverence. They were silent for a time, and when his mother spoke again, it was of other things. You have not yet told me of those kind folks that gave you shelter in your childhood, she said. Who was it that they found you? There was something in her tone that made him wonder at her question. I don't know much about it, he answered, and again he noted a look of relief in the depth of her eyes. Daddy said that Father Cornwall found me and brought me to them. They named me George because I called myself Doherty. Did you say anything else? Only to ask for Donkey Teaway. Did they tell Roger that? Lady Margaret's voice was swift and sharp. No, cried Gordon, startled at her tone. Thank God, she said, and smiled at his troubled face. It was for your Uncle Stephen that you called. Well a day will Roger know the meaning of your wail for Donkey Teaway. And one more nail but driven into my poor brother's coffin. The puzzled boy stared at her. You were lost a long time ago from Uncle Roger, but you are not lost at all from your mother, my son. After the dragoons took your father, I was ill for many months. A year later they again thought me to be dying. Even faithful Benson thought my last hour had come, and she sent a message for my brother. Your Uncle Stephen is one of our brave hunted priests that neither prison nor the fear of death can drive from Scotland. He came at the risk of his life to give me the last rites of Holy Church, and took you with him, promising to find a home for you where your faith would be guarded. He passed out with you hidden under his long grey cloak. A trusty clansman rowed him to a sea-going frigate. He had supposed that my brother meant to take you to France and place you with our kinsman Cardinal Baton. But Stephen is a saint, and saints do not reason as worldly people do. He considered your soul alone and placed you where he thought that peril most safe. He was not pleased with his choice, but he said that where was the only son of the King of Kings placed, in a castle or a court? I said no more, for Stephen is a saint. Why didn't Uncle tell Daddy Abel instead of just sitting me down by the roadside? That was a queer thing to do. Rather, it was a wise thing to do. Had this kind farmer known whose child he took into his house, Sir Roger would have put him in prison for helping to kidnap you. Neither did Stephen go to a strange land and sit you down by a roadside and leave you to the hand of chance. He knew well the wisdom and charity of the good priest to whom he entrusted you, and he remained in hiding a few weeks till he had learned what manner of man was the John Abel in whose care you were. Then, my son, when Stephen and our trusty clansmen thought the time was right for your return, we paid a salmon to give Sir Roger a clue that he might search for you and bring you back to us. But it is also queer, Mother. Now, there's this picture of me you have over the fireplace. How did you get it? Lady Margaret laughed. It is not your portrait. It is your father's. Now, do you know why it takes but a glance to let any clansman know whose son you are? And the old warrior, is he Gordon of the Langsword? Oh no, that's a great-grandfather. Angus Gordon, commonly called the old Earl. The boy was a bit disappointed. I never heard of an Angus Gordon. I thought he looked brave enough to be Langsword. Godfrey said he was the greatest Earl of them all. No doubt Godfrey thinks so. But I shall tell you of both these heroes, and you shall say which was the braver knight. It is not titles, lands, and gold that make a man great. You shall learn who you are, the great men of your house, who have done heroes' deeds, and why this old fireplace is sacred to all of Gordon blood. Lady Margaret smiled, and there was triumph in her glance. Then her look grew suddenly grave. "My son, I shall tell you many tales in time. Yet, lest unknown need should catch you unprepared, I must give you one more word of warning. If you have need of help in any hour of trouble, call on Benson. Failing her, old Edwin, the gate warden, is true. But be watchful. Sometimes walls have ears, and do not speak unless your need is very great. Trust no one else. Should you be forced even to fly from the castle, you have loyal clansmen living in the fastness of old Banander's glens. Their chief and the best of them all is Muckle John o' the Cluth. A sacred passage opens from this old fireplace, the same way by which you fled when Friar Stephen carried you in his arms. It is not known to Sir Roger. There is a spring in the hand of the wooden soldier, on the right side of the mantle. Turn the sword twice to the right and press down. A panel on the left of the fireplace will slide back into the wall. This is the beginning of a passage. The end is in the woodland near Benender. When once in the open, make your way to the Frith, and follow the sword to the glen. But mother, interrupted the boy, a look of apprehension darkening his eyes. If we had to go away, you would be with me, and you would know where the paths are. Lady Margaret did not answer. The white fingers clenched on the arm of the chair, but only for a moment. It is not wise to face trouble till it comes, she said, with strange quietness. Be brave and silent, my son. We shall trust to God and Our Lady, hoping that all may go well. She had given these instructions in a tense, clear, exceedingly low tone, her lips scarcely moving. But with the last word her voice rose to a merry note, and she began to sing a sweet old ballad about a Douglas lost in battle, for the love of the heart of the Bruce. Something in her eye told the boy to ask no question. Half instinctively, Gordon realized that there had been a sound in the outer hall a moment or so before, and he heard it again, a faint creaking, as if a weight were against the door.